Hi, this is Silverpaw Reads, and today we're bringing you Chapter 12 of Sontails Dreams Come True. Christmas time, a time of joy and to be merry. Throughout the small community on the southern end of Mobius, all the citizens prepared for the magical season. Malls and shopping centers stock their shelves full of the latest fashion, books, toys, and video games, ready for the impending masses. Shoppers dash through the stores, wrapping paper flying everywhere in a kaleidoscope of colors and snowman decorations as desperate cashiers try to sedate the crazed crowds. The spirit of the season doesn't stop when you reach the warm confines of the houses dotting the streets, capped with the icy glare of Jack Frost who blew the freezing winds over the earth. Snow continued to fall throughout the month of December, casting white blankets of thick powder which peppered down from the heavens, dancing on the winds. The feverish nights were filled with the bone-chilling sounds of white wolves howling at the moon, echoing throughout the atmosphere. Water melted from the snow which was dripping down from the roof, freezing overnight, to create icicles that stuck out, protruding from the houses like long glassy fingers of an abominable frost creature. The sweet smell of pine wafted through the inside of Tails' house, mixed with the burning warmth of the open fire and heavenly aroma dissipating from within the oven, busy at work baking the Christmas dinners. Flashes of red, silver, and gold tinsel dressing the large tree in the middle of the velvet-carpeted room captivated the eyes of Tails, casting an array of magical colors with the light from the dancing embers of the crackling and hissing fire. They chased away the encroaching shadows of the darkness, filling the room and the hearts of the two boys, Tails and Sonic, with very merry feelings. Tails' azure eyes drifted up the bright golden star, situated atop the large tree, mirroring the color of his own fur. Outside, the glassy eyes of jolly old Saint Nick fell upon the land. Tails reached down into the depths of the plastic bag, pulling out the last two pink fluffy marshmallows. He stuck the first one on the sharp end of the protruding stick which he held, clutched in his hand, and offered the other one out to Sonic, who retrieved it thankfully. The two boys sat, the reflection of the orange fire dominated by black body radiation of soot. Steam and heat engulfed their beings, a light in their eyes. It warmed their spirits. The fire hissed at them as it met with the sugary coating of Sonic's marshmallow, coating it in an auburn-brown mix, heating the inside thoroughly. Adjacent, Tails watched in angst as he tried to replicate the careful, precise movements of Sonic's wrist as he maneuvered his marshmallow around the raging flames. As hard as he tried, he couldn't stop his own marshmallow from exploding in a show of fire as a black crust engulfed the color of pink, burning his own treat to a crisp. "Here, have mine," Sonic gestured, passing his stick which he held with his own marshmallow cooked to perfection. Sincerity and care floated on his words as he uttered them. Tails nodded in thanks as he brought the heated treat to his own mouth, filling the cavernous opening with the squishy goodness. Some of the melted insides slipped from his lips, getting caught in the white fur on his muzzle, sticking to each hair fiber like gum. Tails brought his hand up to his mouth in an attempt to wipe off the residue, but to no avail. "Allow me," Sonic said softly, moving his face up to the young fox and extended his tongue out. He ran it across Tails' muzzle, lapping up the remaining remnants of the marshmallow before retreating back into the confines of his own mouth. Tails let out an audible moan, annoyed that Sonic stopped. A clever smirk crossed the Cobalt Hedgehog's face as he leaned back in and repeated his actions. However, this time he allowed his tongue to finish inside Tails' mouth, greeting the fox's tongue warmly. His lips followed suit shortly after, causing a suction seal around the two boys as their lips pressed together and their tongues began to dance the tango of emotions together. The two could have both been easily content with just sitting like that all night, but the sound of a key in the outside lock and the loud creaking of the front door opening caused them to fly apart, sitting back some distance apart from each other. "Boys, set the table for dinner," Tails' mom beamed at them from the kitchen as she rushed over to the door to greet Sonic's parents. "Stop eating treats before dinner," Vector snapped angrily, removing his bowler hat and long cream-colored coat and placed them on the rack next to the door. His mother kicked the snow that covered the soles of her shoes at the entrance before entering the house, giving a quick hug to Tails' mom on the way to the kitchen. The two boys jumped up, tossing the bag haphazardly into the fire, watching it slowly shrink and disappear in flames as dark smoke erupted from it, billowing out through the chimney. They rushed into the kitchen, setting the table with napkins, decorated with snow and gingerbread man, knives, forks, spoons, plates, glasses, and of course, Christmas crackers. A loud ding could be heard as Tails' mom removed the steaming turkey from the oven and placed it in the middle of the table. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of Knuckles rattling against the hardwood door. Tails ran over to open the door, greeting Knuckles, Tikal, and her family into their home. "Is that everybody?" Sonic asked from the kitchen. Not quite," Tails replied. "We're just waiting on—" He was interrupted by more knocking. Tails' face lit up, but he saw the violet feline standing at the door, presents in hand. "No silver?" Tails asked. "Family stuff, don't ask," Blaze answered, slipping into the warm house and huddling up by the fire for warmth, trying to shed the shivers that had plagued her body throughout her walk in the icy cold night. The group began to dig into the delectable turkey that lay in front of them. "Hey, Tails, crackle?" Sonic offered, holding the other end of his symmetrical device to his friend with the other end clamped tightly in his own hand. Tails grabbed it, and they both pulled. A loud bang erupted from the device, but Sonic retaining the longer end of the contraption. He reached inside, pulling out his emerald paper crown, creating parallels between it and his irises, and a small paper with a joke on it. One by one, all of the members of the table played the traditional game, placing the paper crowns on their heads after they won. "Who wants to read their joke first?" Tikal asked, laughing at her own. "Since Tails invited us all over, I think he should go first." Blaze motioned to him, who smiled warmly in return. "Okay, did you hear about that guy whose left side was cut off?" he said, pausing for a few moments before continuing. "He's all right now." The sound of laughter and groans erupted from the table. "That's horrible. I love it," Sonic laughed. "I don't get it. How could he be alright if he's missing half his body?" Knuckles queried. "Don't you get it, baby? He's all right now, like the direction?" Tikal explained, but Knuckles simply shrugged his shoulders, the humor going straight over his head like always. "Did you hear about the guy who got hit in the head with a can of soda?" Sonic began next. "He was lucky it was a soft drink." More laughs and groans could be heard throughout the table, as Tails slapped his face with the palm of his hand at the corniness of the joke. Sonic was loving it all. "How could it be soft? Metal cans are very hard and would hurt a lot if somebody got hit by one." "Poor old knucklehead, it's called a soft drink." Sonic laughed, enjoying the banter between his other closest friends. One by one, they all read out their horrible jokes, and their reaction continued to be the same. Slowly, the night grew long, and the fire started to simmer down, casting creepy shadows on the walls of Tails' abode. Tikal, Blaze, Knuckles, and their families all left shortly after, leaving just of the 5 of them. "Mom, can I stay at Tails' tonight?" Sonic whined, running up to his mother to give her a pleasing hug. "No, you can't. It's Christmas tomorrow," Vector snapped angrily, shedding his happy facade now that the festivities had drawn to a close. "I promise I'll wake up early and run home so we can spend the morning together," he begged again. "If it's alright with you," she motioned to Tails' mom, who nodded enthusiastically, always pleased when Sonic was staying because it made Tails so much happier. "Then it's settled. 8 a.m., no later," she finished, grabbing Vector before he could interject and exiting the house, closing the door softly behind her. "I'm going to bed," Tails' mother yawned, stretching her limbs as she began to climb the winding staircase to the second story of her house. "Don't stay up too late. Good night, boys." And with that, Sonic and Tails were left alone, staring into the dying light of the struggling fire which had already used up the last of its wooden fuel in a desperate attempt to stay alight. "Sonic?" Tails began cautiously. "Yeah? Do you think that, maybe—" Tails tried to speak, but he kept getting cut off by the lump in his throat. The words were being forced out of his bowels of his being, up through his cylindrical throat, but he could not bring himself to say it. "Tails," Sonic replied concerning, placing a hand on the young kid's shoulder, pressing his thumbs firmly into his muscles, soothingly. Tails purred softly as his muscles relaxed, and he calmed down slightly. "That is the 3rd time this week we've almost been caught," he trailed off. "What are you trying to say, buddy? Maybe we should take a break and be more careful," he suggested, shuddering as he pushed the words out, relinquishing away from Sonic as if the external force of his words had caused him to fall backwards. Small gasps emerged from his mouth as tears filled up his eyes, gently trickling down his face like a struggling brook in a hot summer sun. "Tails, please," Sonic tried to calm down his friend, but Tails kept trying to keep his distance, struggling to not burst into tears, only keeping his composure because of the fear that his mother would hear him. Sonic, I love you too much. I couldn't bear for you to get caught." Well, if we ever get caught, I would just say that I fell in love with you and you never felt the same, so I forced it. People would believe it because I'm stronger and you could live in peace. Tails' eyes widened in horror, the light blue pupils turning a darker shade to mirror the malice that he felt in his heart. At that phrase, the tears held back no longer and shot out of his eye sockets like small bullets, pelting against the warm, fuzzy fur of Tails' legs. I could never let you do that. If we get discovered, I'm going down with you. Together, forever. Tails choked, rushing over to Sonic and burying his face into Sonic's slowly moving chest. Tails could feel the thudding beat of his heart as he tried to dry his tears on his chest. Sonic frowned sadly, looking at the shivering body of his friend. He brought his hand over his head and ruffled his hair gently. Love is when the other person's happiness is more important than your own. I don't care what happens to me as long as you stay happy and safe. He smiled warmly at Tails as he looked up at his hero. You don't understand. Without you, I won't ever be happy. I want us to be together forever. But what if things turn bad? Even if the two of us fall from heaven, I'd gladly walk through hell with you by my side. Tails. Sonic stared off, his heart swelling with the kind words of his soulmate. I love you so much. And me too, Sonic. Sonic gently leaned his head down and placed his lips against Tails. As much as Tails wanted to give himself completely into it, there was something he wanted to get done first. Besides, they had all night to snuggle together. Presents first? Sonic asked, as he pulled away from his warm embrace. Sonic frowned slightly, annoyed that Tails had left him, but he nodded in agreement. Me first, he laughed, reaching behind him and pulling out a wrapped present, decorated with red-colored paper with green Christmas trees dotting the exterior. He received the gift and slowly pulled one end of the maroon bow. It came apart seconds later, and Tails made quick work of the rest of the paper, revealing the gift that was hidden underneath. Do you like it? Sonic asked, a twinkle in his eye as he held his breath, waiting for Tails' reaction. No, Tails replied softly. Sonic felt his heart skip a beat, slowly dying a little as guilt and anxiety gripped his whole body, making it hard for him to speak. Tails in that very moment stripped away the veneer of Sonic's outward coolness to reveal the scared soul beneath, clamoring for his approval above all else. He had worked so hard on the gift, and knew that Tails would have loved it, but he didn't. The pain he felt was indescribable. I love it, Tails giggled, wrapping his arms around Sonic and gave a tight squeeze, laughing as he heard Sonic give out a loud, audible sigh. Tails stepped back and marveled at the gift. He held up the small frame handcrafted out of the finest wood on all of Mobius and painted an eggshell white with the word forever carved into the bottom part. And the middle contained by the frame sat a rectangular picture of Sonic, winking at the camera and flashing his traditional thumbs up with his other arm and the smaller fox's shoulder, who was grinning sheepishly. Their pitched tent sat behind them. This was the picture your mom took of us right after you cheered me on our camping trip, isn't it? Tails asked in awed. You got it, buddy. You have no idea how long it took me to construct that frame, he joked. My present's gonna look horrible in comparison, Tails sighed, twirling his forefinger in between his three outstrutting bangs nervously. If it came for you, I know that I'll love it. Sonic smiled in reply. Tails reached behind him and pulled out his small diary and handed it to Sonic. This is full of every thought I've ever had. All my hopes, dreams, memories, and fears are all locked in this. I want you to have it. He looked at Tails. For once in his life, he had no retort, no clever metaphor, sweet compliment, or snappy comeback. He was unable to utter even a single syllable. He had never had somebody in his life who trusted him so fully to give him something that essentially revealed every detail. Do you really trust me this much? Sonic bit his lip, trying hard to hide the tears of joy from emerging. Always. Sonic couldn't take it any longer. He grabbed Tails by the waist and pulled him into the most intense, passionate kiss that the kid had ever experienced in his entire life. The fire fizzled out and crackled its last flame before the two boys broke apart from each other, collapsing on their backs on the ground, lapping up the cool oxygen they so desperately desired. Merry Christmas, Sonic, Tails whispered finally after regaining his breath partially. Merry Christmas, Tails. Anyways, that is the end of Chapter 12. We'll see you next time for Chapter 13, and you guys have a great day.